The Renew podcast features inspiring conversations between host Lauren Martin and influential women shaping the real estate industry. Renew is a RentSpree initiative to unite and cheer on women professionals from every corner of the real estate world, coast to coast.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Renew podcast presented by RentSpree. I'm your host, Lauren Martin, and I'm so excited to have a very special guest with us today. Her name is Tannum, and we are going to get started with her pop quiz question of the day. So Tannum, with your experience in the industry, out of all of the HR characters that we know and love on movie sets, who is your favorite? You have to choose from Toby from The Office, Ron Swanson from Parks and Rec, or the HR director from Severance?
Excellent question. Okay, based on my background, I think you can tell who I'm gonna go with. Toby from The Office. I am a diehard Office fan. In terms of like his, personality and skill, I just think he's a very He's a very sweet, likable guy. He just tries his best. And I think seeing him represent HR in that way, I think has been so, also working on HR. It's a very funny take on the industry, and sometimes like not always inaccurate, as wild as the show is. But I would say Toby.
Yeah, I love Toby. I was actually just watching The Office last night, the Benihana Christmas episode. Yeah. And when Dwight comes and takes the robe from him and he just looks so sad.
Like dejected.
It cracks me up every time.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Well, welcome to the Renew podcast presented by RentSpree, where we aim to elevate female voices, share insights on how to navigate industry challenges, and showcase the remarkable achievements of women in real estate. I'm your host, Lauren Martin, and today we have a very special guest joining us from RentSpree. This is a colleague and a friend and somebody that I also look up to, so we are so excited. Her name is Tannum Sullivan. She is the Senior Manager of People, Experience, and Culture at RentSpree. Tannum, welcome.
Hello. That was such a sweet intro. I also look up to you. So I really appreciate this honor of being on your podcast.
We are so excited to have you. It is long overdue. I am just excited for everybody to hear about you and your take on women in leadership and who inspires you. So to get us kick-started, tell us a little bit about yourself and your career journey and what you do today.
Sure. So as you mentioned, my name is Tannum. I have not always been in the people experience HR function. So my career journey actually starts in the radio industry. So I worked on the promotions and marketing team for quite a few radio stations in Southern California, which was really fun. I got to go to all of the concerts. I've worked many concerts. I've met a lot of celebrities and musicians. So that was a really, really fun experience. But I very quickly learned that the entertainment industry was not for me. So after a few years in that industry, I went into marketing. So I worked at a marketing company and I did reputation management, which is kind of a fancy way of saying I responded to customer reviews. But I learned a lot in that role. And while I was doing reputation management, I started to dabble in social media for the company, employer branding for the company. And at that time, that role didn't exist it gets a little confusing. My boss now joined that company then. And I often look back, I feel bad. 2 weeks into him in that role as the chief people officer, I created a job description for this job that did not exist. And I walked right up to him and I said, I want to do this full time here. Here are the reasons behind why you need me to do that. And he said yes. So very, very grateful for him. His name's Kevin. And so fast forward, I think I've been doing this I've been in HR for around 7 years now. So fast forward, I do this full time. And I just joined RentSpree I'm coming up on 6 months, which has flown by. I know. So, very, very grateful to be continuing my passion for creating a really as fun as it can be. I know it's still work at the end of the day, but when you're just working constantly, that burnout is real. So I try to come in and create fun moments, engaging moments where employees can connect with one another and create a great experience for those internally at RentSpree. So that's a little bit about me and my career. I'm located in Southern California, a little mountain town outside of LA. I've got a dog, a husband, 2 cats. I love how I mentioned the dog first. Husband, dog, 2 cats. And yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Well, that's awesome. Okay, so a couple things. One, I was sure you were going to say you're coming up on your year anniversary because you've done so much here. I would have assumed it was a year, but I think that just speaks volumes of how much you've changed our organization already. And 2, were you inspired by Pam at all when you just created your own role?
I actually just watched that episode recently and I was like, oh, that was literally me. Just in meetings, like, I can do it because I am the office manager. I think that was the role she created for herself. So yes, very much so.
That is awesome. Well, talk to us a little bit about that, because I think one thing we talk about a lot at Renew is understanding your strengths and then finding the best place for you. And I think a lot of times, especially women, we try really hard to fit in the little boxes that are made for us, right? And I think we need to practice a lot more of creating our own box. So talk to me a little bit about how you found out what you loved and what you were good at and how you built it out.
Absolutely. So honestly, I owe it to mentors throughout different parts of my life at different companies. But looking back, when I was actually working in the radio industry, I had a coworker turned best friend. And one time she said to me, and this was all she said, closed mouths don't get fed. And that just blew my mind. I've never thought of, it's such a simple phrase, but really it opens so many doors for me. And essentially it's just, if you don't ask, you will never know. Or if you don't do it, you will never know. So, and then fast forward to when I was in marketing and I was starting to dabble in the employer brand and HR industry, which was, you know, a definite shift in my current role. It was not in my job description at that time. And I had a mentor at that company and she just point blank was like, do you know this is a full-time job? It's called employer branding. And again, at that point, I did not know. So really it was the people along the way that kind of like opened these little doors for me.
Yeah.
And putting those two together, when I discovered that this was a full-on industry and a full-time job, closed mouths don't get fed. I'm going to ask. There's this new guy, Kevin, at work, who I really admire. I would love to work for. Let me ask him if this could be a full-time job. And of course, knowing how to speak their language to prove that, you know, that this is worth their while. So coming up with the data, coming up with the reasons behind why I need this role and why it should be me and why they need this role as well. Yeah, so definitely the people along the way, for sure.
Well, that's awesome. And you know what? I am with you on the closed mouths don't get fed. This is a really silly example. We went to the state fair over the weekend and we were feeding these little goats and there was this one goat that was just like in my face. I'm like, bro, I just gave you like 30 carrots. Like the rest of them don't have any. I've just blown through all my carrots on you. And I was thinking about that in the context of work. I know that's really silly, but it's funny how, like, you know, mirrors our careers. And I'm like, you just got to keep asking for the carrots, man, and you'll get them.
It's true.
But I think a lot of women struggle with like imposter syndrome and feeling like they don't deserve to speak up. More than anything, I think people have a hard time understanding what their strong suit is. So coming out of working in marketing and working for a radio company, how did you know that this was your passion? I mean, you didn't really do it before. I guess you kind of dabbled in it, but how did you, I mean, that takes a lot of like self-conviction to say this is what I want to do and I know I'm going to be good at it.
Absolutely. And I would be lying if I said at that time that I thought I would be great at it. Like, I think I've always kind of had a mindset of similar to closed mouths don't get fed, but like if I don't try, I don't know. I will never find out if this is the right move for me.
Yeah.
I think up until that point, what I had been doing, I knew was not for me. Like I knew that much.
Yeah.
So to then have to find what is right for me, I'm just tried. I think just trying and just going for it just to see if it does stick. And luckily it did. But if it didn't, I probably would pivot again and just try and find the next thing. But again, you won't know unless you try. And I do completely agree. I think women in the workplace especially, it's very difficult to like put yourself out there, find that conviction, as you mentioned, to try something new. But again, I would rather have tried than not have tried at all.
Yeah, I totally agree. Liz Sturrock and Teresa King-Kinney were my first podcast guests ever. They're good friends of mine, mentors of mine. They work with the Miami Association of Realtors. And one thing that they said in the first podcast ever was always say yes. If somebody asks you to do something, always say yes. And I think that speaks to what you just said. Like, you didn't know that you were going to be able to do it, but you took a chance. And I think what's really hard is, I don't know that I've ever talked about this on a podcast, but when you spend so much time and money for building your career as a young adult, like when you go into college, you have no clue what the heck you want to do. I went to school for fashion design and look where I am today. Like, this is not what I thought my life was going to be like, but you put so much energy and money behind it that it's hard to pivot. And you're like, I worked hard to get where I am. I don't really like it. It's not really making me happy, but I'm here now. So talk to us a little bit about just the mindset around, like, it's okay to pivot from what I am doing today.
Yeah, I did not know you went to fashion school. That's really interesting.
Did.
Yeah. I think being comfortable with pivoting comes with being comfortable with change.
Mm-hmm.
And that's like a very uncomfortable concept for me, especially. I don't generally like change. I'm a bit of a control. I like to control things. So change is uncomfortable. But when my livelihood and my best interest is at stake, I will do anything to improve my life. And so being comfortable with pivoting, I think you just have to kind of get comfortable with it.
Yeah.
And just knowing that you in 20, 30, not even, you in 5 years will thank yourself for that pivot. I think when you have that mindset in mind, it can help you get a bit more comfortable with it. Like, me in the future will thank myself for at least trying to pivot. Yeah.
If not, I mean, we just kind of stay where we are and nothing changes. And I think what you said probably resonates with a lot of people. I don't like change. I have experienced a ton of change in my life. I've worked for many different startups, personal change, and it's always uncomfortable. But the one thing I've learned is it's inevitable, right? Like, it is, no matter what you do or who you surround yourself with or where you work, even if it's at the same company, there's going to be massive change.
Absolutely. I just heard this recently, and I've heard it before, but the phrase is, the only constant is change.
Mm-hmm.
Always.
I love that.
Yeah,
you just can't avoid it. So talk to us a little bit about working in the radio industry. Do you have a favorite person you ever met? I know this is like just a pop culture thing, but curious, the scoop.
The tea. I'm trying to think if I have had signed any NDAs. But I do have a favorite person I've worked with, Ed Sheeran.
Gosh.
Yeah, I was the term is a wrangler. It's really just someone who gets the artist from point A to point B to C on time.
Mm-hmm.
So I was his wrangler for a radio show at the Hollywood Bowl. Really nice guy. Super chill. Just like an easygoing guy. And I cannot say that for a lot of other people. But yeah, he was honestly so chill, didn't have a lot of requests, got him to the places on time, and he was good. He was happy.
That's awesome. Well, I love to hear that because I'm a huge Ed Sheeran fan, so that's really cool. I always think if there was a celebrity who I would want to be friends with, I feel like it would be Adam Sandler. He just seems like a super nice guy, just down to earth in his basketball shorts. I think we would be friends.
I love that so much. He's such a vibe. He's a mood. Yeah.
He definitely is. So, with change, there's a lot of growing pains. What would you say has been the biggest challenge that you faced in your career, and how did you overcome it?
Ooh, that's an excellent question. Very juicy. The biggest challenge I've faced in my career Okay, there might be a few, but the biggest one I can think of, and this is way back in the day,
Yeah.
toxic managers and toxic leadership. I, looking back, I'm grateful for the experience because it definitely made me stronger as a person. But long, long, long ago, I have experienced toxic leadership to a point where I was like a shell of a human being. Like severe anxiety, couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, dread going to work. And I'm trying to think if I had like a healthy way of overcoming all of that. I actually, yes, there was, I left that job, but before I did, truly after years of dealing with this person, years and crying and tears on the way to work, way home from work, there was just one day where I was like, enough is enough. I'm a human being. And yeah, it was a very, very big learning experience for me. But there was just one day I walked into his office and I said, I don't like the way that you treat me. I don't like the way that you treat others. I can't deal with this anymore. Either you change or I'm out. So our relationship was very uncomfortable after that. But I'm at the end of the day, I was proud I did it because
Yeah.
there was no way I was going to spend more of my energy and my time thinking about how he would react to something or, if I'm going to get in trouble. So, yeah, that would be I would say probably the most like traumatic thing I've had to overcome in my
Yeah.
career, but I'm glad I said something when I did. Yeah.
I think that speaks volumes because a lot of times people suffer with that kind of stuff in silence. I was in the same boat as you. This was way early on in my career when I made the shift from fashion into the business world. I had a manager that was very, very inappropriate with me, very toxic, but just very inappropriate, a male leadership figure. And I took it for a long time and like demeaning comments, inappropriate situations. And one day I went into work and I said, I'm not going to do this anymore. I just like got a bee in my bonnet and I walked in and I was like, you're not a nice person. I'm giving you my 5-second notice. I'm done and I hope you can get your life together. And I stormed out. And I never looked back. And, obviously I won't be using them as a job reference, but that is quite all right because I think sometimes you have to speak up. And a lot of women, especially, just have a very hard time because exactly what you said, it is going to be uncomfortable after you say something. And you have to be okay with that because if not, they're going to continue making you uncomfortable in a different way that's not healthy for your life.
Absolutely. I got chills when you said that. It's such a powerful thing to stand up for yourself, especially when we're younger women in the workplace. Like, it's not easy. That's especially to a leadership figure. But yeah, I completely agree. Yeah, it's probably going to be uncomfortable. I think if you go into that conversation thinking it's going to solve everything, that they would have changed decades ago.
Yeah.
So, and I think, and you and I have talked about the Let Them book, and I wish I had it back then because focusing on what you can control, like we can control going into that office and telling them that, but we can't control how they're going to react to it or what they're going to do after. So it's just, but I think standing up for yourself, we have control of that.
Yeah. And I think what you said is really meaningful because we are not wizards by any means. So like if I'm going to go in and say like you're not a nice person, I should have zero like that's not going to like wake them up and they're going to be like, "Oh my gosh, you're right. I am totally not nice." And this is a turning point for me and I'm going to be a nice person now. No, they're probably going to be a jerk to somebody else, but at least you told it to them straight. So yeah, I really think that it's important to manage your expectations, but know you're doing the best for yourself. I'm a huge fan of the Let Them theory. This is not in my list of questions, but I will ask you anyways, what are some of your favorite takeaways from the book?
Honestly, it was probably the first book in so long where I was listening to it on the audiobook. I was like in my car and just like, yeah. Yes. So my biggest takeaway was I think how it applied, the Let Them theory applied to different groups of people in your life, from parents, siblings, partners, coworkers, bosses. I think just the way that Mel Robbins broke that down for each group was really, really impactful and powerful, and just how it applied to everyone. And I think the biggest takeaway for me was just like how simple the theory is.
Right.
It's not rocket science. It's a very simple concept, but just the way that she shared it throughout the book was so powerful. So powerful. Yeah.
One of my best friends was thinking about reading it, and I told her, I was like, she owns 2 businesses and she struggles a lot with just like negative personalities. And I told her she should read it, and she said, all right, well, I already know. I mean, they are acting a fool and you let them. That's the book. And I was like, well, you're not wrong, but still read it, because it really, I think exactly to your point, it breaks it down in a way that you're like, because like when I'm a control freak kind of. So when I went to read it, I was like, well, I want to just let people do whatever they want to do. Like, that's just, I don't want that. And she broke it down in a way that I was like, oh, okay, yeah, I guess that's right. Like, if somebody's acting that way, maybe think about there's a reason they're acting that way. So let them. Definitely super impactful for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So moving right along, a couple women empowerment questions for you. Is there a female in your life that has really inspired you, or a mentor that you would like to shout out that you have worked with along the way?
Well, that's really sweet. Okay, I've got a few. I'll do a quick
It's an
fire
Emmy,
round.
Oscar speech.
Okay.
You got your time.
Well, first, my mom. My parents got divorced when I was around 10, and my dad is lovely and the best dad ever. Like, he's still in the picture. I'm not saying that. But I was with my mom primarily, Monday through Friday. So that's like a huge chunk of my life.
Yeah.
So seeing my mom navigate being a single parent essentially, and raising 2 daughters that, I think we turned out great. So just seeing my mom navigate all that and all the change that she's experienced in her life, and she's navigated it with such grace. So I think I owe a lot of my work ethic and my values to my mom. So shout out Anne Marie. Then a few mentors along the way in my career. Kim from my radio days. She's the person that told me, closed mouths don't get fed. We've got my boss at my last company, Kat. She was instrumental in helping me transition into the HR world. And then we have a few others like Mina, Claudia, who opened doors for me and mentored me along the way. And I'm sure that there are others, and don't want to forget them, but I think those are the names that are coming to mind. Oh, and then like my sister as well. I'll end it with that. My little sister has really like helped shape who I am. Growing up with her and navigating adulthood with her has been a joy. So yeah.
Oh, well, that's a good one to end on. It's amazing how much of a difference it makes to have a strong female figure early in your life, and watch how they navigate things. My mom, it was just the 2 of us for my really early kid years. And then my dad came into the picture. It's not my biological dad, but he's a dad to me. But just looking back on how much my mom overcame as a single mom was really inspiring. So I'm glad that you called that out. So shout out to your mom, Anne Marie, because it really does kind of lay foundation for women to look up to, for sure.
I completely agree. I think it's really interesting to hear about your upbringing as well, and I see that in you, and I think like being an independent adult woman now like is a pure reflection of the women who raised us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah.
My mom is the type, she doesn't take a lot of crap from anybody, and so I learned that from her, definitely. But that kind of leads me really well into the next question. What are some of the biggest issues that you've seen that women face in the workplace today?
That's a really good question. I think there are a few. I will say, I've not experienced this at RentSpree, so I feel very, very fortunate to work with such amazing people here at RentSpree, and leaders that actually like genuinely are very involved and care about your growth and your experience. But I think in general, what I have seen at other companies is the pay disparity. Like that is so, I think it's like a buzzword, and it's thrown around in media like, women get paid less than men, blah, blah, blah. And it starts to feel a bit like a buzzword. But I've seen it, I've experienced it.
Wow.
It is a very, very real issue. And I think there are a lot of reasons for it. But again, I go back to like, closed mouths don't get fed. Like, if you don't bring that up or if you don't advocate for yourself, and unfortunately, women have to do that for themselves, I think a lot more than, other people in the workplace, but just like having to, and sometimes it's agonizing and exhausting. Like, people go on years asking for promotions or raises or just wanting to get around the same amount as their male counterparts.
For sure.
So it's unfortunate. It really is. And something I think a lot of workplaces are working on. I know at least at RentSpree, like also being on the back end, on the HR side, like there are meticulous reportings that we do to ensure that it's equal, or we're trying to get there. So it's been really interesting to be on that backside to make sure that we're working on it as a global workforce. Yeah.
For sure. Yeah, I think that it has become a buzzword, and it's unfortunate because it's like just an overlooked topic. Like, people are like, oh yeah, the pay discrepancy. And it is true. And it's not even when you look at, I've faced it in my career. It's not just looking at like, I have a person that is the same role as me and I make less. It's, hey, like, I'm making X and you're hiring somebody that is brand new making double what I'm making, or, that you're just setting them. I work in sales at a past company. One of my male counterparts was just set up for success more when it came to, prospects. So it's stuff like that, I think, that gets kind of overlooked because of this higher conversation of like, oh, well, okay, well, if you're just looking at the percentage of pay, like, whatever. But it's not just that. It's the overarching, for example, if a woman's been working at a company for 4 or 5 years asking for a promotion, and then you go and you hire somebody that is making double. That happened at one of my last companies. You have to take a look at that too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, for sure. So that leads me into a really good question. I have 2 more for you on this segment until we break for part 2. But the first one is, I was doing a little research for a newsletter that we were sending out, and this really blew my mind. I don't know if you know this stat or not, but women make up 5% of leadership roles in tech companies. 5%. That is crazy to me.
That's like shockingly low.
So my question for you, this is going to kind of lead us into the next segment about HR, but what are some pieces of advice that you could give women through the interview process, or when they're asking for a raise or a promotion, that they can use to help kind of break that 5%?
That's such an excellent question. I still can't get over that stat. That is shocking. Some advice I would give throughout the interview process, or as they're navigating asking for a promotion, and I think I alluded to this earlier, but like speaking the language, and that could be that could be like C-suite language or executive language. I think just thinking of how the audience that you will be talking to and pitching to, learning how they operate and how they prefer to receive information. And I don't want to generalize, because obviously there's all different types of people in C-suite level. But I think more often than not, data is a huge piece of that puzzle. And I'm a creative. Personally don't love numbers. So that has always been, that's always been my biggest hurdle, I think, and when I have been, like, when going back to when I was trying to create this position for myself at my last company, the first pitch I put together was very like, there was a lot of information on it, but it was very like, I would do X, Y, and Z, and here's why you would need X, Y, and Z. And Kat, I mentioned at the time, my boss was like, okay, we need to throw lots of more numbers on this. Like, let's speak to them. Like, if you were to do this role, it would result in X amount of number, or, it would result in more X amount of applications. And being able to like calculate those numbers accurately, accurate data is huge, huge. So I think, that sounds kind of like elementary, but I think just having that reminder in the back of your head, even when I was interviewing for this role at RentSpree, I got some great feedback, and I actually just ended up putting into like a formula of sorts, and my formula for interviewing was, I did X, it resulted in X, and here are the numbers to prove it. And being able to like speak in that formula to my panel that I was interviewing with immensely helped, immensely. It like more succinctly described what I've accomplished while being able to speak to the numbers that they find that matter. So I think that would be my biggest piece of advice, is transforming what you've done and tacking numbers onto it to prove. Yeah.
I love that. And I think especially I'm a creative like you. And so a lot of the times the value that I feel like I bring, or other females in the industry that I know, it's like intrinsic value, right? It's like value that is intangible value. And so I think that's a really good exercise for all of our listeners on the call. Find ways, ask yourself, utilize AI. Big proponent of utilizing AI, and say like, hey, these are my strong suits. This is what I've done. How can you help me quantify this? I really love that.
Yeah, that's genius. I love that.
So my last question for you, until we move to part 2, this is a Renew question. I end all of my podcasts with this. If you could go back in time and give advice to younger little Tannum, what would you tell her?
That's really sweet. I think of the let them theory. I wish first I would give her that book, and I would just share that, like, the time and the energy to try and control your environment. And I think this is like, I don't want to turn it into like a therapy session, but when you're in this chaotic environment that feels like it's spiraling out of control, I think little Tannum did everything she could to try and like control others around her and control that environment around her. And it's absolutely trickled into like my adulthood and how I operate, which is like slightly unfortunate, but yeah, so I would share the book and just say, like, it is physically impossible to control others. At the end of the day, you are the only person you can control. You can control your actions and how you react to things. Other than that, don't worry about it. Like, do not worry about it. I think little Tannum just spent so much time trying to control the others around her in that environment, which is, it's like a waste of time, honestly, at that point. So
yeah. Well, I think you and I are kindred spirits, because you're speaking to the heart of me. I'm the same way, and I think that you're so right. The only thing at the end of the day that you can do is control how you feel. You honestly can't even control what you think, right? Like, your first reaction to something, you can't control that, but after that reaction, after that moment, you have full control of what happens from that point on.
Exactly.
Well, Tannum, it has been such a joy and a pleasure. Thank you so much for talking to us about your journey, where you've been, where you're going, what inspires you. We are so excited to have you back next week for part 2, where we're going to dive deeper into pitfalls and also accomplishments of working in HR. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me, Lauren. I really appreciate it.